Hey, Mr. Garage here, and behind me I've got a whole bunch of Swaybar bushings and in-link sets for the GX470s. We're going to be going through that simple little process of what you need to do to replace your Swaybar bushings. Most GXs are getting up in mileage, so your bushings are probably shot. And if you're like me and you tow a lot, or you just want to keep the factory suspension there, just the anti-roll setup there, it's a good idea to replace all your bushings with something a little bit better even than factory. But let's go through the parts that I ordered. One of the parts is a little bit different spec. It's for a 90 to 95 4RUNNER. It's the rear end link for the sway bars. They're about an inch longer. So if you have a little bit of a lift, you might want to use that part and just put your sway bar in a little better alignment if you haven't broken your rear sway bar in half. I've seen a lot of GXs where they snap the rear sway bar in half because it's about the size of a coat hanger. So anyways, let's take a look at what I ordered and I'll show you what I'm going to be installing. All right, so let's cruise through the parts you need to do this refurbishment of your sway bars. So what I ordered is part number 8.5135G 29 millimeter front sway bar bushings. The front sway bar on the GX is freaking huge. I mean, you can see the holes in there. Those things are massive. Just all this is the bushings. The front end links don't have any bushings, so this is just the sway bar bushings themselves. Comes with just some grease from Energy, and I mean, real affordable little kit. These use the factory brackets. The only ding I could have on them is they don't have a hole, or there's no place for a Zerk fitting. I could of course drill them and drill the bracket and do all that, but I'm just not going to bother. So I'm just going to throw these in, grease the heck out of them, and if they get squeaky over time, then I'll take them down, add some more grease. Hopefully they'll last quite a while because we don't see a lot of water here in Arizona. Let's move on to the rear. So the rear set is going to be part number 8.5142G, and these are a 19 millimeter sway bar bushing. Now the rears, as I mentioned before, are coat hanger size. They're tiny. The rear sway bar is tiny, so that's the bushing set for the rear, and they come with these really stiff in-link bushings, which I really like from Energy. These are good. This is what you want if you're doing sway bars. Again, comes with a little packet of PTFE grease, but that's the part number you need for there. Now, moving on to MOOG, the rear sway bar links that I use. These look all cool. Looks like they have Zerk fittings and they're serviceable and all that. They aren't. So we get a very boring version for the GX, but this isn't the exact GX part number. The exact GX part number, it looks exactly like this, but it's an inch shorter. These are for the 90 to 95 4RUNNER, 1990 to 1995 4RUNNER, and they're about an inch longer. So if you have a mild lift in your GX, this is a smart upgrade. Now these come with in-link bushings, but I can squish these by hand and kind of smash them by hand. That's not good. That's not what I want on my car. So anyways, I'm not going to use these. I'm going to use the Energy ones with these in links, and these are only like 16 bucks a piece, and yeah, this will be good. So these are longer, so if you have a mild lift, yeah, this is kind of what you want. But other than that, these feel quality. They feel really tight. The ball joint here is really kind of stiff. They're a low wear part, so this is going to work out just fine. Came from Amazon for like 16 bucks a piece, and I don't think I covered the part number. K80380. That is the MOOG part number for these rear end link. So I didn't figure this out. Some smart dude on the GX forum figured this out a long time ago, that these were the same end link, just a little bit longer from the 4RUNNER. So whoever that dude was, appreciate it, man. Yeah, so let's go get on installation. This isn't rocket science. This should be a really quick install. It's not hard to install sway bar bushings. Few minor precautions you got to take, but really it's not that big of a deal. But we'll get on that. Let's get those changed out, and yeah, that's it. All right, so the front sway bar bushings are very easy. We don't even have to drop the skid plate, take tires off, nothing. All we're going to do is, with the car parked on a flat level surface, we're going to take out the two 14 millimeter bolts that hold the sway bar bracket in. We're going to drop those two off of this side, and then we're just going to loosen the other ones on the other side. So loosening the other ones will give the sway bar a little bit of flex so that we can get the bushing around it. So let's get this started. Okay, so we've only loosened the driver's side, and the reason for that, let's kind of spin around, so you can actually get the bushing on the passenger side off. And all we do is remove our bracket once it's unbolted, and the bushing is going to be split, and we're simply going to pull it off. If you don't loosen the driver's side, you actually can't get this bushing off. There's just not enough clearance on it. That's it. And that's our old, kind of wallered out, nasty bushing. So Yeah, so let's get to prepping the two 19mm bushings that we're going to put back in. We're going to put this one on, and once we get this one in, we're only going to just put in the bolts a couple of threads, just like we did the driver's side. Then we're going to slide around to the driver's side and do the exact same thing. All right, so there's really not a lot to prep on these big old 29mm bushings for the front. So we have the bushings, two bushings that come in the kit. And again, that is part number 8.5135G for the black ones that I run. And you get a large tube of PTFE grease. This stuff is really nasty, very, very thick. You don't want to get this on your hands. So we're going to go ahead and tear the top off the grease. Get this pulled. And we're going to put about a half tube of this grease. I'm going to squirt it. You can see it in there. Into each of these bushings. Once we get it in there, you're just going to take your finger. There's actually grooves. You can see them kind of etched into the poly material on these. So you're simply going to wipe them around. And you're going to evenly distribute that grease all the way around that bushing. Okay, that looks good. Nice coating. And we'll do the other one. And that is literally pretty much it for these front bushings. So all we're going to do now is reverse assemble. So we're going to put our bushings back in and bolt everything down. German spec, good and tight. And that'll be it for the front. And then we're going to get to the rear sway bars. Rear sway bars are a little bit, I wouldn't say more complex. There's just more to them, as you got to do the end links and the end link bushings. So I'll show you what to do when we get there. But yeah, the rears will require us to pull the tires, but not a big deal. So anyways, yeah, let me get on this, finish up the fronts, and then we'll move on to the rears. All right, so the rear sway bar is very, very easy. So the first thing you're going to do on the rear is you go ahead and take off this 12mm nut on these in-link bushings. So we're going to take that nut off. I recommend a ratcheting box end for that. You can just pull it right off. Do both sides, and it's going to allow the sway bar to drop down a little bit, and then you can get an impact if you want on the back side of this guy, and that's going to be a 17. And then you go up inside here. You can actually see the sway bar bushing in there for this little tiny coat hanger sway bar. But each of those is going to be 12mm. And it's the same process as the front. So you're going to take out your 212s. You're going to grease up your new bushing and put it in a little bracket. And then you're going to tighten everything back down. All right, so we have dropped the rear portion of the sway bar just with this tire off, and of course we're braced by a jack stand. Always be safe when you're taking off your tires. We got our sway bar sitting here, our end link is out, and here is our little setup. So this is the old end link, obviously, it's all dirty and nasty. This is the new MOOG one from the older 4RUNNER that's a little bit longer. You can see the length difference there, so that's going to be perfect. I'm going to start assembling this. I've got to grease up our little bushing, and I'm also going to add some grease to the in-link bushings. There's going to be two of these, and I'll kind of show you how those are assembled. Notice there's this little kind of flange deal right here on this bushing, and when we put these in, that flange is going to kind of go through the hole, and the other one's going to go the other side, going to kind of mate up to it that way. So that's how you're going to want to set these in. Let's see here. I think that's about it for right now. And let me kind of step back here and start putting these pieces in, and we'll get to videoing the installation. Very, very quick and easy. All right, so you can kind of see I've prepped up the in-link bushings with grease. So I put a little bit around the side with the little flange on it, and I put a little bit of grease around all the little cups before installation. One other thing I want to point out on these Moogs, I really don't like the nut, this big locking flange nut they provide. It almost feels like it cross threads on, like it's the wrong thread on their part, but it's not. But it goes on so freaking hard. I just reuse the factory nut. It's not like this nut's bad. I just reuse that. That would be my recommendation. But you can use the new, the bushing nut that goes on the very top to squish the bushings down. So you can use that one, but I don't recommend using their bolt here. It's a real pain in the butt. Okay, our assembly is complete. Now you notice the factory setup had one more metal washer between this bracket right here and the bushing. We don't do that on this particular installation, so it's going to be exactly as pictured. Now the grease, once you get your bushings in and on the these little washers, go ahead and spin them around, make sure the grease is nice and evenly distributed, and then you can go ahead and crank down on the top nut. And then we will get this bottom end link torqued down. Okay, so for the top nut, when you tighten this guy down, the depth is actually pretty preset. It's actually perfect on these MOOGs. So you're just going to keep on cranking, basically until the nut stops, and it's going to hit a stopper, and that's going to be absolutely perfect for what you want. So, and that's it. That one is all set. I'll get that torqued just like I mentioned a second ago. I'm going to get my new little coat hanger bushing up in there, put on those 12 millimeters, get those torqued down. I'm going to do the other side, and I think you guys can take it from there. I don't need to do any more video, but that is the bushing and sway bar bushing setup for the rear. Very, very simple process, and I hope this helps you guys out. I will catch you later. Subscribe. Talk to you soon.